Hello, good evening, everybody. Today we are going to have a very interesting conversation with an ace sound engineer in the Indian music industry, Farhad DadyBurjor, and we shall be asking him questions, his journey, his approach to mixing and music, what he's been doing. Audio mechanic, wow, what a name. Shreyas, hi. We saw your work on Anurag's film, very well done. I was going to talk about Gogi Audio, a friend of mine in Delhi, Rajinder Singh, who is doing some incredible videos regarding audio and DIY and stuff like that for home studio people. Please go and check him out, Gogi Audio. He's doing some really incredible work. So have a listen and chat with him. Hi, Hriday. Hi, Vikram. Familiar faces, after a while, you start, getting a family of familiar people who are taking part in your series of chat shows, and that's really nice. Saurav, hello. I think I need to wave back at people as well. Warren's here as well. So Warren, are you missing the outdoors? By the way, guys, for those who don't know, Warren D'Souza is the captain of the ship of sound.com in India, and he's doing some amazing work. Yeah, we have two Warrens in Bombay, Warren D'Souza, and the other Warren's the one who plays the guitar, Mendoza. Sad Deva 24, hello. Sometimes it's tough to make out who you are with your Instagram handles, but I guess I'll figure it out slowly. Aditya from Chennai, acha, okay. That's Mount Aditya, okay, Mount Aditya, now I know who you are. Just waiting for Mr. Dadi to come on board. Mr. Dadi, how are you, Farhad?
Hi guys, very good. Sorry, not very tech savvy with Instagram, so it took me a while to figure out how to join. I just sent you a message saying, help, I've forgotten how to join.
No. I was so busy talking that I forgot that I had to invite you in. My mistake, not yours.
Okay.
So that's perfectly okay. Actually, this series has been very interesting. I think a lot of engineers have joined Instagram and are taking part in it and now getting familiar with it, which is a great thing. I think it's a great platform. So why not? So welcome.
Hiding on Instagram for a very long time.
We were all, I think we were all lurking around Instagram, just checking things out, but not being an active participant. So now
it is true. I did not know how to use Instagram, and I did not want my son to teach me because he would never have forgotten to crow about it every time.
Right, same here.
Yeah.
But now here you are, so it's not an issue. So Farhad, where should we start? We should start.
Wherever.
I remember I just asked you, so did you work on analog? That was a very interesting question, and you said I'm not that young. So what happened? Where were you doing your analog work when you started?
Well, when we built digital domain, actually even pre-digital domain, before we built the studio, I worked out of Rajesh's bedroom for nearly a year and a half. And we were recording at that time, I think, most of Alicia's landmark albums, including Remo's work. And Remo would actually go in the bathroom and sing, and I'd be recording in the bedroom.
Wow.
And at that point, we had, I think, Fostex R8, quarter-inch 8-track.
Yes.
I mean, we had the ADAM also, but it wasn't hooked up as yet.
Okay.
So we were using that. And even at digital domain, lots of people didn't adapt well necessarily to digital. They got scared. I mean, in the early days, I used to get calls from people saying, okay, I'm playing live bass. How do we record digitally? I have an analog out. So it was that infantile. And to maintain compatibility with a lot of other studios, we also had a half-inch Fostex. I think it was a G16.
G16 would have been a 16-track, but you had a half-inch 16-track. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, So, I mean, most of the really hard analog days was in the bedroom, splicing takes before digital.
So, according to
memories.
You, yeah, of course, I also have great memories of analog days, learning the craft and then trying to become better at the 45 degree or a smaller edit in terms of the angle of the edit and stuff like that. Great pressure, but it taught you a lot. I think that's the thing, what we all came out from. So Rajesh studio Digital Domain went on to become one of the first digital studios. That's right.
Well, actually, the first.
The first, right? So what were you guys using at that point in digital? So what did you guys use?
Well, when I joined Rajesh in the bedroom, actually there was a created inline Allen and Heath console.
Okay.
And created ADAM. It was an Akai 12-track digital that worked on 8mm cartridges in those days. And he just said, like, you need to learn to solder cables, put this all together, figure it out, and try it. Also, at that point, was the first DAC machine.
Whoa.
Which I had. So, I mean, there was an analog console, but fully digital path recording and mix down also. Yeah, we had a lot of fun on.
So, where did you meet Rajesh? Like, where was the meeting point with Rajesh?
Well, it's actually a historical story, pretty well documented on YouTube. I was going to Bond University in Australia to study my MS in computers after BSc.
Okay.
And I had gone to Delhi, very broke kid, to get an Australian visa. Came back, was sleeping. First afternoon I was sleeping after 3 months of BSc, first afternoon. And my dad came to the bedroom and whacked me on my back and said, "What, you're going to sleep your whole holiday away?" So I was really pissed off. I mean, I hadn't slept like a proper afternoon even in 3 months. So I stormed out of the house. We used to all hang out at a hi-fi shop at Grant Road. There's a guy called Narain. I think he might still be there. I'm not sure.
The Narain audio guy?
Yeah.
Manoj?
Narain Halankar.
Halankar, okay. Gotcha.
So I went to his shop and I met Rustam Pauri there. And I told Rustam, I'm going to come and just hang out with you, work with you, whatever you want, paint cabinets, put up stacks, anything. Just keep me out of my house, away from dad. For 9 in the morning, I'll come. I'll stay till 9 in the evening. Don't pay me anything. I'll just work with you. He said, well, summer's almost over. There's going to be no live show. And he gave me Rajesh's number. So I got back home and I said, Chalo, it's a 494 number. Means it must be somewhere very close to me. I called. And I asked him, and I said, it's 494, where are you? So he said, I'm in Rushilla. I said, oh, great, I'm in Kushnuma. So he said, okay, then why don't you put down the phone and come over? So I just walked to 150 meters down the road to his house. And yeah,
that's where it started.
That's where it started.
So Digital Domain, from what I remember reading out of a lot of the music which got recorded, especially independent music in India, in those times, so much came out of that place. Could you name some of the stuff that came out of there?
Oof. I think almost all of Louis' seminal album, Silk, Shivamani, Zakir's movie soundtracks in those days. He did a really good one called Miss Beatty's Children.
Yeah, that movie,
yes. In which, unfortunately, Pamela passed away, I think about a decade back. Yeah, albums. We were like a factory then. I mean, strict discipline, the kind of schooling you wouldn't get today. We'd be in by 8 o'clock, chai nashta from Cafe City or City Bakery. By 12, one full jingle was done. And we used to all play, everyone used to play live. So Louis would just write down the parts. Carl would play bass live. Roy would play guitars live. Rajesh would program the drums. And we were like a factory, you know, like you mix down one before lunch break, start. Mix down one before chai break, start. 8:39, you're home with 3 jingles. And you saw them on TV the next day. No changes, no options, no, can we try this voiceover, nothing. And this is everything, with chorus, Vinay Manke singing, Bridges voiceover, Nikhil's voiceover.
Wow, that would have taught you a lot, Farhad. Yep. That would have like really
that limited tracks and limited tools. I had one harmonizer, one SPX 1000 Yamaha, and one stereo DBX compressor.
Okay.
So that was the only hardware that we had at our disposal. So you compressed on the way in, you left the compressor for the master on the way out. And everything was tracked carefully with the effects as you might need them. Like if you wanted to have a different reverb on the snare, you recorded it with the reverb.
Because you only had one unit.
The Yamaha for something else, or the vocals or something in the mix.
Whoa. That's a good learning place. That's a very good learning place.
Because unforgiving. There were no, I mean, you couldn't make a mistake. But then again, the producer would say, hey, what if we remove the snare, reverb from the snare also?
Yeah, that's true. So, did you find it different when you were recording jingles or when you were recording music for albums? Was it any different process or the process remained the same?
Well, the process is pretty much the same.
Okay.
I think those were fun days. We had a lot of fun. And I think there's a large part of that missing in modern workflows now with everything sequenced and synthesized.
So it's the human interaction what made it the fun part, obviously? That's the main...
Obviously, because you're always joshing or fooling. If Louis left the room for 10 minutes, everyone was jamming. I'd be playing keyboard, somebody would be on the guitar, Roy would be playing, Carl would be playing. And then suddenly Louis would walk back in mid and say, oh, shucks.
What happened here?
We had great fun.
So that's the main difference. I know a lot of people from that era definitely I do as well, miss the human interaction, which led to so much fun and making the magic happen because you were all together and pushing, jostling for that space. So it just upped your ante a lot. And I think that's what you were trying to say as well. So cut to Digital Domain and cut to Galactica. You became famous, like in the sense of a famous studio. So what prompted you to leave Digital Domain and then shift to Galactica, which you started?
Again, like with joining Rajesh was a chance completely out of the blue. Same way, joining Famous was a chance.
Okay.
I was I used to do a lot all White Light's work at that time. And were of course the number one commercial makers at the point. And Shubi used to keep saying, there's someone I want you to meet, And once I had gone to Famous actually to pick up a check from White Light, and he caught me in the lobby and he said, good, you come here, I'll just introduce you quickly. And he took me into the room and said, this is Mr. Rungta, he owns Famous, this is Farhad, the guy I was telling you about. I'm going to let you talk by. And walked out.
And you walked off, okay.
So then that's how it started. And I was still working for Digital Domain, and my wife, then girlfriend, was in Hong Kong. So I would be, after 3 months, I'd just collect enough money and piss off as fast as I could back to Hong Kong. Mr. Rungta would call me up in Hong Kong, can you go to London to check out some gear? Can you do this? And I'd be torn. Yes, I would love to go to London and check out gear, but I'm here on holiday with my girlfriend. I did finally go to London and all over Europe also for gear and stuff. But at one point when I thought I was building him a studio that he really wanted to build, but at one point where it was just before all systems were go, he said, "No, I don't want to do it unless you join me as the engineer." And
so initially he just wanted you to build one for him. There was no thing that you had to join.
I thought he wanted me to just build him a studio.
Okay. So who put this idea that you need a studio which is like that big and really the most modern? You put that idea in his head. He just wanted a studio, or he wanted a state-of-the-art studio?
No, the studio had come with preconceived notions. There was an old gentleman who was in charge of these things, but they wanted to buy an SSL Omnimix and that sort of stuff. And ultimately, when push came to shove, I said, okay, you want me to join? I'm already earning well. I'm working well. I have a good time where I am. the only way you can do this is buy me the toys I want, and let's really build a world-class place. Well, actually, that was one of my briefs. At that time, Famous was like a good bungalow. The brief to me when we were building Galactica A was, let's make Famous famous again. Well, we pretty much did.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so you were the guy instrumental in getting the Euphonics console there?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was one of the first.
There's a story behind that.
What happened there then?
I spent 6 months negotiating with SSL. And in fact, actually the first time I ever went to Europe, or rather to the UK, to London, I didn't even get to London. I went straight from the airport to Oxford, where I spent a fabulous 4 or 5 days at the SSL
factory,
and at the SSL factory. And we had negotiated a fantastic deal actually for an SSL 4000G plus.
All right. Oh, okay.
But coming from the Sigma that I was using, the Allen and Heath inline, I expected to be floored hearing the sound of the SSL. I wasn't impressed. And at the time, they had just literally just announced the 9000J. And they just built a new demo room with the 9000J. And obviously automation was compatible and master tapes were compatible. And I mean, I had access to a lot of stuff there, demo material to mix Madonna and Desiree and, lots of Shep Pettibone remixes and stuff.
Oh.
And, I spent a couple of days mixing those tracks, and then we took the master to the 9000 room. And when I heard that, I was blown away. I mean, I was just totally blown away. I said, this is the sound that a console should have.
Right.
So I told them, this is what I want to buy. I remember this so vividly, going back to the inn and calling up Mr. Rungta and saying this. And he said, well, if you like it, then we should buy it. And then the most bizarre thing happened. I'm going to be brutally frank here, because now this was 27, 28 years ago. So nothing to hide. We were getting nearly 60% or 63% off the list price of an SSL 4000G plus.
4000G plus. Okay.
So I asked him, how much is a 32 9000J? So he said, firstly, we don't build them that small. Secondly, I did the quick Guju calculation and said, if this is 100,000 and you're giving it to me for 32,000, that is 350,000. You give it to me for 120,000.
Right.
And I mean, if they had said yes, I was literally traveling with a blank check in my hand. I just had to make a phone call and the money would be transferred. And the guys at SSL told me in the most impeccably polite British way to fuck off. No, well, actually, what they said really riled me, because they said, actually, if you went to the factory floor, I think the first 9 consoles that were being built were for all the top studios in the world. I mean, Right Track, Record Plant, Abbey Road, We Salute, Galaxy in Belgium.
So they had all ordered the 9000 series.
So I've actually got photos of those consoles being built. And they showed me the copy for an ad which they were going to put out in the cover of Studio Sound and stuff, which said 9000J, now playing in all the top studios in the world. And basically what they said is, we don't want someone to see famous studios, Mahalakshmi, Mumbai, in this list.
Oh,
essentially, it was like, it's not the right product for your country. You're not targeting this at the third world. So I said, look, I was really pissed off.
Bye-bye.
I said, thank you very much. Got back to London, went to the Euphonics office, saw the CS2000, and I said, man, there's no going back after this.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I did try back with SSL. I told them that, how does it make a difference? My money has the same Benjamin
value
on it as anyone else's.
Right.
They did apologize to me, I think, after about 5 years. and they offered to buy back the euphonics at full value if I'd put a 9000J there.
Okay.
But by then, there was no going back.
Going back, yeah.
It had up to two full stereo signal paths per channel strip. And
Yeah.
6 inputs which you could use in any combination.
Mm.
Hey Deepak, hey Ravi, Inderpal, hi. The Ghatak, hi.
The Ghatak is also there. Ghatak, what are you cooking today? We should ask him that.
You owe me food. Hi John.
He owes all of us food and coffee.
Correct. Hi Camille. Poonam is also on.
Yeah,
My
she's
wife's
there.
also on somewhere, I think.
Ah, cool.
Yeah.
Poonam's doing diligent work, writing down all the questions. Okay, so that's famous for you, and Sonic Laundry movement happened. So what was that? What prompted that?
It sounds a little unbelievable actually, but there was no plan as such.
Okay.
I just
one day decided
had a chance. I just had a chance one day to buy a pair of Manleys.
Okay.
Shiv called me up out of the blue and just said, like, I have a brand new mastering, massive passive, and a brand new very new mastering. Would you like to buy them? Then I said, would I? Yeah, sure, I would. So then I had a massive passive, and then I don't know why I suddenly just started buying gear, you know. I met the API guys, and Dan said, I'll give you a superb deal. So I bought lots of API stuff. Then somebody else met me. And then at some point, we had all this gear in crates under my bed. And at some point, I started taking it to Carmichael and shoving it under my mom and dad's bed. And then at some point, I started shoving it under my sister's bed in the other bedroom also out there. So then I thought that, you know, I need to do something about this. And we ended up buying a 3-bedroom house. So I decided the 3rd bedroom was actually supposed to be my wife's laundry room.
So that's why Sonic Laundry is just keeping her happy.
So, and I said, you know, I mean, we were already looking at buying a 3-bedroom, and I said, you know, I think I'll buy one. I'll connect buy a small pair of Genelecs and connect it to the iMac, and I'll buy one small Focusrite or M-Box or something, and it'll be superb. We'll put it on one table, and I'll be able to do like song mixes and all at home. And it'll just take up a corner of the room. I'm sure she's listening in the hall and saying yes.
And now it's the other way around. The machine is in a corner and you've taken over.
Well, the machine, the laundry is still in the loo in the studio, but yeah.
That's what happened. And cut to some last year or sometime I saw you sold off a whole bunch of that hardware. So what happened?
It's taken me 2 years to sell it all off. Well, lots of things happened. I loved using it, but my passion was to buy the hardware for me. And I think unless you have 3 assistant engineers diligently taking notes and doing recalls for you, it's not possible. At the peak of time, I had 32 channels of analog EQ running into 32 channels of analog compression through a digitally controlled analog patch bay that would allow anything to be patched to anything and running into the thing. And it got quite out of control. In terms of, I love the sound, I loved using the gear, but no one gave you time to do recalls. If someone had a 4-song or 5-song project, they'd say, you know, I want to do it on analog. And you'd say, great, somebody who thinks like me, how nice. And we have all this agreement that I'm going to mix it, and then you'll come and approve the song, and then we'll do it, and we'll dump the stems, and we'll dump vocals up, vocals down, international, whatever you want. And even the 16-track with all the processing, so you can make changes. Yeah, 100%. We are on, bro. That never happened. One project would be always on the analog, and I'd be mixing in the box the other 3 songs on my DA converter. So And it got to be a drag. The few times even, when somebody comes over and wants to do it, they keep walking out to smoke. We are a non-smoking house. Keep walking out my front door to smoke. Is it done? No, man. Okay, again go back. Again come out. Is it done? No, man. Wait. It would take 45 minutes to an hour to just change the setup. And
yeah.
God forbid if someone came in at that point and said, hey, just one sec, have you changed everything? I had an idea. So
yeah, that's when you want to shoot them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that. I relate to that. Yes.
Honestly, the tools that we have, computers, computing power, plugins, modeling techniques for plugins, has come to a point where it really doesn't matter anymore. If I was a tracking studio, Sonic Laundry is not a tracking studio.
Right.
So if I was a tracking studio, I would have kept the gear happily.
Okay, because somebody had asked that question.
You could consign on the way in, and then it would be the sound. But nobody lets you do that even. So
yeah, true. Somebody had asked that, at which point did you feel that you could shift from hardware to plugins?
Honestly, more than 3.5 years ago.
Yeah, 3.5 years ago. You felt the plugins had kind of come up to par that you could switch?
Not to the level they are at in the last year, but which is still, I guess, work in progress. I still think we're going to see plugins that are even more incredible. But it's not necessarily about the plugins. It's the whole thing. I mean, your computing power to run heavy plugins has grown.
Oh yeah, exponentially. Absolutely.
And the quality of the plugins has grown exponentially. You're not dealing with really well recorded live sound anymore. So everything that's coming from a sampler has already been recorded,
processed, and then
polished to death with everything. So there's very little you really need to do to stuff like that. I think some people would be horribly disappointed seeing my sessions.
Why?
What? He's used only 18 plugins in the whole bloody thing.
Okay, like that.
So yeah, because there's so much stuff that just doesn't need any processing, and I think it's stupid to prove your engineering manhood by saying, "Oh no, they've given it to me, so I need to make sure I do something to every track."
Oh yeah, So what happens to something like when you get tracks which are not well recorded? Do you end up remember we discussed that, versus earlier on to now, how are you getting your tracks when something comes to you for a mix? So does that then involve a lot more plugin just to fix and kind of get the tracks to where you really like it before you mix? That's when the heavy plugins start coming in?
Yes and no. I think, firstly, I've been very lucky that most of the work that I'm doing here in this room comes to me very well produced. Whether it's live or recording. I generally work with friends, like-minded people, whether it's Stuffers or Clinton or whoever. So that is the thing. Most of the tracks I get here are, most importantly, minimal. Probably the largest project I might have mixed must be 65 tracks or so, which is not even Preetham's Dholak section. Yeah, so that is a huge advantage. I don't know when production here will get to the point where people understand that using space in the arrangement is as equally important a part of the programming as the Indian attitude of aapko paisa diya hai, please fill the whole thing up. There are at least 7 places where I've identified silences of 4 frames each, and you need to do paisa vasuli to me.
Paisa vasool, right. Okay. So that's a sensibility thing which we don't know at which point it might catch up and so it'll take a while. Yeah, sure.
People don't understand that it's the space that allows you to make things huge. Otherwise, there's no space to make anything big or fat. To make something big or fat requires oral space around it for it to be that way.
Absolutely. I remember talking to some Dolby guys once. The guys had come from Dolby Labs abroad, and we were having a dinner, and we were talking about how trailers are mixed for film in in LA, and they were saying we have trailer experts who just mix trailers. They don't mix film at all.
Yeah.
They're experts who mix trailers and they know how to get it within the range, but at the same time giving you the impact which you need to hear. And they do it by what you just said, playing with space, playing with silences. So every time there's going to be a huge explosion, you will always find a silence preceding that, so that relatively you can hear that big difference. So space, very important, like you just rightfully said. I hope all the guys who are listening in are kind of taking note of this. Very important to have space for relative and dynamics to kind of kick in for you to hear, listener to hear. So important point, Farhad. I think good you mentioned that. And anything else that your take on when you're mixing tracks which are sent by others? Anything else?
I have a very unorthodox. I never hear the reference mix.
Oh, okay.
So because I feel like if you got it to me and I've never heard the song, I should interpret it a fresh way. It's a risk. It's a 50-50 chance. Somebody could say, this is not how I thought it would be, but I love it. Or somebody could say, this is not you didn't hear my reference or what?
Okay.
In which case, I mean, I'm fine with it. I'm happy to scrap it and begin again.
You
know? Okay. So if somebody wants it exactly like the reference, I don't think there's a huge amount of creativity involved in mixing it. If that is the case, that's a very easy thing to do, to take someone's money and just mix it like that. I think someone who's mixing it should bring their own imprint and perspective.
A sonic imprint on
somebody's music, maybe make it better. But I find a lot of people are very close-minded. That, no, I want it exactly like this. My thing is, if you want it exactly like this, the sonic quality of all the samples you're using is more than fine. Why don't you just make 16 stems and just give it to the mastering engineer?
So, but do you get clients like that sometimes who say, no, I want it like the reference?
Very rarely, but really? I do.
You do.
The point is, like I said, it's when you choose to do it whichever way you want to, it's a 50-50 thing. There's 50% chance they'll like it. There's 50% chance they won't like it.
Yeah, and you're willing to take that chance.
Yeah, I'm willing to take that.
In your side, yeah. You're willing to do that.
It's fun for me. It unleashes a creative side of it. I think of mixing, and when you talk about the big name mixing engineers, if you've been watching stuff that they do, there is nothing special about what they are doing or what techniques they are using. It's actually, I think they are almost equally important as a producer or the composer is. They are producing the mix.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I like to think I'm doing. I'm producing the mix. I'm not mixing. Anyone can do the mixing.
Right.
But to clear the tracks and have a vision of where you want to take them. I'm sorry, it's sounding very vain when I hear myself back. But
no, it's not vain at all. I totally agree.
I think a mix has to be crafted. When people say crafted, I like to translate that as it's been produced. You got me a potato, but I am deciding whether I'm going to make it into chips or baked potato with cream or whatever.
Right.
But that again depends on whether you like chips or you like baked potato. So it's a bit of that.
Okay.
And I don't know, since we are talking about this, my advice in terms of, everyone always asks me these things. My advice is, most people, like I said, I don't consider anything I do really amazing or special. I just use the same normal tools everyone does. I mean, now especially, I'm in the box. You have the same plugins I do. And no one can say, oh yeah, but he's got a mountain of hardware out there. Of course he can do that. Right? So it's a bit like being stripped naked and now it's out there. Whatever I have, you can have.
That's true.
A lot of it is, for me, is about what not to do more than what to do.
I hope everybody's listening to that. What not to do more than what not to do.
Yeah, because we have this tendency here that I have seen producer to music director, bhai paisa wasuli chahiye. Music director to engineer. Boss, but what? इतना जल्दी हो गया? कर लिया आपने? क्या बस खोलो अच्छा what? You hardly done anything, man. So it reminds me of that old joke about the Russian factory that stopped, and no one could get. It's all old pipe and steam operated. No one could get it to work. And finally, one old guy came and said, "I'll get it to work." And he went all over the factory and finally came to one U-bend in a pipe and took a hammer and just hit once, and everything starts. So the guys asked him, "How much is it?" So he said, 10,000 rubles. So they said, 10,000 rubles for a hammer strike. He said, "No, it's only 10 rubles for the hammer strike. It's 9,990 to know where to strike the hammer." So it's a bit like that. You know, you can have, I have done mixes like that where I have gone, let me do this, let me do that. And then Hitesh and Clinton have come and said, "It's sounding horribly over-processed, man. Remove this. Finally, we have the whole session. Fantastic. It's sounding fantastic. And there are only 3 plugins on it. Important life lessons to learn that sometimes you need to have enough knowledge to know that you haven't got to try to do nothing to this to ruin it.
Yeah.
But of course, that is far and few in between when you get sessions like that.
Right. That's true. I agree. I mean, people ask me sometimes, how's it working with AR and, how do you mix his songs and everything? So my answer to that is exactly what you just said. I get the session so beautifully done. I mean, he's already arranged it in his head. When he's played stuff, when he's written stuff, it's already done. So like with you, I just have to kind of, maybe he's missed out a part where he thinks this is coming in loud, just top tail it, put it in nicely and just present it back to him. That's what he's looking for. He's saying, okay, what is your take on when you hear what I have done? Tu bata, tere ko kya sunai de raha? And I present it to him and he says, I like this what you did. I don't like this. Same with Deepak. He says, Deepak, I like this work what you did here. Maybe do more of that. And that's it. And we are done. So it's not a huge rocket science that you have to use tons of gear and tons of processing. It is just how you are listening. And sometimes I did that with FTI students. I say, first 1 hour, when you record a track, no plugins, just balance and pan.
I spent the first 8 hours just listening to the song on repeat.
True. So I think
touching the faders.
I think Ravi was asking this. Is there one song that stands out in what you consider your best and you enjoyed mixing and listening to? Any one particular one?
Oh, there are so many.
The body of work you've done, there had to be so many.
I honestly can't even pick out a particular song because, and I think this should be true of anything. I think that to really mix a song, you have to be madly in love with the song whilst you're mixing it.
True.
And I think learning the song whilst you're doing that, the process of learning the song, is a very, very important part. I find too many people get the thumb drive, immediately load the session on, load the tracks and start mixing. I mean, what are you doing? You don't know the song. You don't know the parts. By the time I started mixing, I know most of the lyrics.
Yeah, true.
I know in my head production, well, okay, now that guitar is going to come in. Now that second guitar is going to come on the left-hand side. And that's a nice effect. And this is going to happen. And the chorus is little down. I've got to remember to do this or do that. So literally, this is the truth. The first day that I'm mixing the song, I'm chilling. I could be just hearing it. Facebook could be on. I'm hearing it.
Right. And ideas are getting in your head. Like even, you remember Tony was saying, ideas
sometimes it doesn't call for any ideas. It's just a straight up mix. But I need to learn the song so I can mix
from okay. So from your point of view, you just need to get familiar with the song, the material that you're going to be working
with.
And
then you have to be fickle because you got to completely, once you're finished with it and it's done, you have to let it out into the world and not be possessive about it and be ready to fall in love with the next song.
Next one again, yeah.
Yeah. So and not all songs are pretty and not all songs demand love. So it's a bit of a dichotomy, but yeah.
Okay.
Like
So,
everyone asks, and I've always said this in advertising, that you can't be doing Nike and Adidas ads every day. Every day you will do Nirma, but once in a blue moon, you will get to do Nike or Adidas.
true.
And that's the way it is. The thing is to stay consistent through Nirma to Adidas.
Joy is asking, do you listen to your mixes again after you're out in the world?
Almost never.
Almost never again. I'm in love with
No,
something else.
it's not a conscious thing or being snobbish or anything like that. It's just that I love listening to music a lot, and time now, especially with family, TV, Netflix, whatever, undivided time to hear music becomes smaller and smaller a window. And I hate hearing music on headphones or earpods or whatever. For me, music has to be big, loud on
It has to move
speakers.
air.
Yeah, I can tell you very honestly, 90% of the time, Sonic Laundry is being used to play loud guitars and music rather than mixing.
Okay, so that's a good place to go if somebody wants to do that.
Yeah, so I mean,
Okay,
it sounds.
Farhad, I had a quick question. What you just said, that when you are mixing and somebody gives you tracks, you kind of live with it to get familiar with it. So, do you think? Again, I'm going back to early days when you were part of the creation and the recording, and then you mixed. You by that time you mixed, you had already gotten familiar with the song and the whole thing.
Absolutely 100%.
And that's what made that thing.
I have never ever understood. I mean, yeah, today it's maybe a little different. But most days when you track a jingle and you are there and the programmer, I mean, okay, now today half the guys mix on their headphones, program on their headphones.
Programmers, yeah.
And now sometimes it's a necessity. Some guys just want to do it that way privately. Sometimes it's a necessity because that guy's programming and you're dubbing voices in the meanwhile.
Yeah.
But I genuinely love the process of hearing,
yeah,
the building of a track on speakers and understanding what the guy creating the track is trying to go for. Yeah, it's one of my greatest joys, which is becoming far and few in between because most people seem to work on headphones. I really appreciate when someone says, no, crank up the speaker, man. I need to feel the kick to program it. Yeah, happily
do that, yeah.
Happily, absolutely. And I find it very strange that after you've been sitting in a room and hearing the whole track being built up from inception, it takes you 6 hours to mix it. Because and I'm glad you brought that up because very honestly, in my head, if I spent 8 hours in the room listening to you program the track, in my head the mix is already done before you've given me the tracks. Because I already know exactly what I'm going to do to what part of it.
True, very true.
And very often, if my rapport with the person who's programming it or the music director is such, I will tell him that this is what I'm hearing. Why don't you do this or why don't you tweak this? Because it's much better. It comes in like that rather than my trying to make it like that.
Yeah, very true. I agree. I totally agree that.
But
and
again,
that's
we trade with fragile egos. So
all the time.
Who you can say this to and who you don't say it to.
Who do you don't say it to? Yeah. So I would point that out and say then being careful who you say to, what you just said, and what you say to them is a very important part of being a mix engineer, to learn that. Do you think that would be wise to say that? That you need to learn that as well?
I'm the wrong guy to tell you that.
Why is that?
I am well known to say exactly what I mean. Some people love me for it. Most people don't, unless you really get to know me well.
But that's with most engineers. Most engineers who are well known for their work. I mean, if you look at that, they are all very strongly opinionated, and in a good way. I mean, they are opinionated. They have opinion about something, and I think that's what makes for a great engineer as well. And you don't shy away from saying that. I mean, I think that's common trait in most of them. So you're no different from them in that sense.
Maybe so.
But do you think it's important to do that? I mean, it's important to be kind of like that and just tell them upfront like that?
Well, it works for me.
Works for you? All right, cool. for you?
I don't know. I won't advise someone else because I don't know what their dynamics or their relationship with the person they're telling is.
Okay, so
It
they need to
really
be mindful
depends.
of that, huh? Depends on that. Okay.
Everything is 50-50 in life. It can go the
Mhm.
right way or it can go the wrong way.
The other way. All right. Well, that makes sense.
You have to either have the conviction to do what you want to do, like I said about the mixing. A lazy
Okay.
guy would say, I mean, this guy always wants it exactly like his reference. Let me just mix it and take my money and get the hell out.
Get the-
I won't do that. I know he wants it exactly like his reference, but I will still have my fun with the mix and present it that way.
Presented that. This is my version. This is the way I hear it. That
This
kind
is
of
the
thing.
way I'm seeing it. If you don't, I'm happy to do it exactly. It's not very difficult to copy someone's mix exactly, especially when they've given you the tracks at the mix. I mean, ideally speaking, your mix should be, the music composer's mix should be what you get when you put everything at 0 or trim it down or whatever. All faders the same level.
Okay. So what about things like when you're doing film, like you said, now you just set up Galactica again for 5.1 Dolby Atmos, right?
7.1.4.
7.1. Oh, okay. So are you now doing those surround mixes as well? And are you finding it different from handling this stereo work? How does that work?
It's a bigger palette to play with, for sure.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, doing crowded mixes on 2 speakers to suddenly doing sparse things where you have a 360 feel to play with. It's fabulous, but like I said, it's a learning process.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you remember to do things with taste, and like in the early days, I had like Dolby Surround back in Galactica A in those days, which was just LCRS.
Okay, LCRS. Okay.
And the producers would like, surround में घुमा के कर दो ना, थोड़ा मजा आएगा. And you're looking at him because there's nothing to ghumao in the surround. What do you want me to do? Take the lead vocal back and bring it back here. So it doesn't work like that, I mean, I met a guy who was quite big at the time in surround, and he told me that there are no rules. There is only good taste, and that actually struck me as the truth. Whether it is for movies or even in the young days of DVD audio where things were coming out in surround audio and SACD, there were no rules. It's just in good taste.
So there are
because you have it doesn't mean you have to use all of it.
Use it, right? So your penchant for good taste in guitars, watches, whiskey is very well known. So that also forms a part
you've done
of
your homework.
So no, I know we have common friends, and so we know. So it does that also form a part of aesthetic buildup of good taste, good aesthetic values, not only just in music, in life, in things in general, which kind of help you put things together when you mix?
It's a tough question to answer, actually. I think I'm going to go about it the other way around. I'll answer your question from the backside. We have very difficult, lonely lives as engineers. Mostly, and I've been telling people this for a long time. I've done my due time. I have worked weeks and months at an end, 18-hour days, back-breaking work, literally. When my girlfriend, now wife, was in Hong Kong, I was willing to work anytime. I mean, there are not probably very many people in the industry today who were around at that time, but you could call me up on Diwali and say, we need to work now, and I'll be there in 15 minutes. You could call me up on New Year's Eve at 1:45 midnight. Me being the loser, I'd be at home, no partying, nothing. Can you come now? Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I can come now. I was that guy. So I've paid my due time. I think a lot of people don't get, once you become successful or you start making money, I don't think of myself as successful in that way, in terms of making money. I'm being paid to do something I really love. And when you start doing that, you have to learn to take time to smell the roses. There's no point making all that money and socking it away, because there's no end to money.
Right.
Yeah, there's no end. You can always buy a better watch or a more expensive whiskey or a bigger house or a fancier car or whatever. But there's no end to that. So at some point, you have to have a work-life balance. You have to have passions for things completely outside your work that you give your time and effort to.
Right.
Because if you don't bring that balance into your life, and you're there all the time, 18 hours a day mixing, I don't think that's a life, that's an existence. It doesn't matter then at that point how successful you are or what fame you've achieved or whatever it is that the goals of that endeavor are. You suddenly find one day you have an 18-year-old son that you don't know at all and you missed all his childhood. No amount of money is going to bring that back.
Bring that back.
You find you've been married for 25 years and suddenly you feel like you don't know the woman you were married to.
Right.
I never want that to happen. I think there has to be a balanced quality in life. In whatever you do. I mean, it doesn't have to be an engineer here.
True.
I find too many people always willing. I mean, I was always willing. I have, like I said, I've done my time. I've put in my hours. I've paid my dues.
You paid your dues. So what would you say is your outside the engineering interest, which really excites you?
My wife says I always need something to keep me occupied.
So what is it now?
But I would say probably my oldest love, which has never, unwavering love has always been watches.
Watches, okay.
Mechanical watches.
Mechanical, yeah, I heard about that. Mechanical watches.
Yeah,
so you love collecting them.
Yeah. Well, it's become very difficult now. They're not easily affordable. But yeah.
Okay. So that's good. I think that's a good takeaway. I mean, what you just said about having a life outside your work existence, I think it's important because it starts giving you perspective on what you are doing, because you get out of it and when you come back, every time I've done that, I've found I've come back recharged. I've come back brimming with fresh new ideas and something more to do, rather than sitting there for like 25 days in a month. Doesn't do much. Taking that break and coming back is good. You have something else to focus on for a while. So guys, what Farhad just said, don't do your time. You are youngsters who are out there, and I know you are wanting to give it your best shot and want to impress your clients and you want to kind of be available. Great, that's fine. But then you need to put a cap on it somewhere, that you need to have a life beyond that, because all these years are going to go by and suddenly you will find, what have I done? So just be careful what you are doing, the time you're spending, honing in your skill is what we call it. So Pulsate, I wanted to know, KJ, please ask Farhad about the importance of depth in his mixes. You talked about it earlier as well in terms of space and also. Do you want to expand on that a little bit?
Okay. Yeah. I find this also something that is extremely common in a lot of people. Partly it's the music director's fault. Yeah, because all you guys bounce out mono sources with panning as stereo tracks. Yeah. I actually have this program I'm growing old. I can't remember the name.
Okay.
But basically, you can put in an entire folder of tracks exported by Logic or Cubase, and it figures out which of them are a mono source and which of them are actually stereo tracks. And it outputs a folder again as with the mono tracks in mono. So I think it's important to do that because, number one, and this is old school because I don't think it really matters so much today with powerful computers, but I remember a time where if you put that 6 plugin on the 8th track on Pro Tools, it would cough and die.
That's right.
We used to gate stuff and, use the gate and clean up clips. Because even the way Pro Tools works is even when you're playing silence, it is using this space and it's playing back.
Right.
And we had something in a menu called mute, freeze, assigned voice. which we also had to juggle and use sometimes when you didn't have enough processing power. You
Just to
actually had
optimize your DSP,
yeah,
optimize the
to
DSP.
optimize DSP usage, you had to mute the tracks.
Right.
Hi, Ravi.
Ravi's back.
Yes,
Okay.
I use Pro Tools exclusively because it's the only one I know. And GarageBand.
But you must share this software thing because I do it the traditional way.
I will do it. I'll send you the name and you can post it up on Instagram.
I do it when I see something, then I go through the phase scope meter and I actually check. And of course, what I do is if I find both of them mono, I throw away one and just use the mono.
I tend to do that
Mm-hmm.
because for two reasons. One is it forces me to pan. And since you are asking about depth and space, I find too many mixes today that are just too heavily centered or overly wide with a big gaping hole in the center. And I think part of the problem is that you're getting mono that is being pushed to your left and right rather than to your center. Part of the problem is you guys are not using panning. I very often change the pans of even stereo tracks and change the pan balance of it to make space. If everything is visually in the same place, I mean, if you look at sound as a visual, you're going to get aliasing, phasing, filtering, comb filtering. Not going to hear. I mean, if you look at my hands, even it's easy. Clear, not clear. There's no rocket science to it. We are working in stereo in the minimum. Panning is a huge way of making space. In fact, I would recommend before you touch EQ or compression or any other process, first pan it. Put your tracks up and pan them so you know what actually really needs something to be done to it when it's unmasked as such or it doesn't. Right. Because we all love our processes and our plugins, but you have to remember one basic important thing. Every plugin you put in is destructive to the process on that audio. If you assume that the audio you got is pristine, everything you do to it from there on is destructive to the audio.
Good point. Yes.
So you have a first responsibility you have is to the music director's vision of not destroying something. This is again where I have said the mix production comes in 50-50.
Yeah.
Either you see it completely your way or you see it completely that person's way.
That person's way, yeah. Cool. That makes sense.
Sorry, Aditya was asking me, is it necessary to have work-life balance when you were young? I had no balance at all when I was young. I was completely my knob was on 11 all the time. Honestly, I had no life. My girlfriend was in Hong Kong. I'd work like a dog. 18 hours a day. I was always there. I was always first up to be there. I'd be at the studio. You call me at 6 a.m., I'd be at the studio at 6 a.m. Like I said, you call me on New Year's Eve, I'd be there. New Year's Eve. No problem. I did that for nearly 6 years. Sorry. Yeah, I put in many long hours.
Long hours, yeah. Okay.
Once you feel you have enough, I don't know, you need to define what is enough. I find most people don't define what is enough. You need to learn to set boundaries. You see, when you're young and you're always willing to be there and you're always there to do changes and mixes and can you come back tonight and do it? Let me tell you a secret. There is nothing in life that is so urgent that it cannot be done tomorrow morning. This is just a chain of ego from top down. I want it done now. You tell the agency says, I want it done now. The production house tells you, I want it done now. And I think you have a right in life at some point to say, no, I'm sorry, I've worked 12 hours. I'm home with my wife and kid. I cannot do it now. I can come tomorrow morning an hour early and do it for you at 9 in the morning. Absolutely. But I cannot do it now.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely.
Again, same thing. 50-50 rule applies. 50% chance the client will say, this guy is a difficult guy to work with, I can't trust him. Or 50% the client sees it your way.
And agrees to come back. Yeah.
Yeah, it all balances out in life, because when you're young, most of your clients are young. Most of them are single, unmarried, willing to pay their dues also as filmmakers, as editors, as whatever. Yeah, at some point they also will be married. They also will have wives and kids to go home to. Let me tell you a true story. 27 years ago, well, not 27 years ago, 27 years ago, when I started working at Famous, one of the most pet grouses was I didn't want to work Sundays. I just got married, yeah, and the only thing my wife asked me to do was work as much as you want, but I want you to be home one day for me. So I said to myself, okay, this is going to be easy. I'm just going to tell everyone rather than be upfront about it. I said, I'm going to tell everyone that now I charge double on Sundays. Six more Sundays went by. People were paying me double.
So you're still working Sundays?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
7th Sunday came, and I remember this very clearly. I remember because the first 6 months of our married life, we were staying with my parents while doing up our house. And the phone rang, and it was someone, and he said, 8 in the morning, he said, listen, is it possible they want to know if you can come in at 11 today to do a session? And I was like, okay, yeah, tell him that now I charge triple on Sundays. So the production guy said, okay, give me some time, I'll call you back. 10 minutes later, called me back and said, Sanjeev says you're a bastard, but okay. So at that point, I realized that this was not the way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's always going to be someone who is desperate enough
to pay that and ask you to come. Yeah.
To this thing. But that time has value. After that, if once you put your foot down and do this, you think this afternoon sleep on Sunday is costing me $10,000. It's true. It does. But what value do you put on it? What value do you put on yourself? What value do you put on your personal life?
And your time, yeah. You need to decide that.
Yeah, so, Aditya, you need to set your own limits. By all means, charge quadruple on Sundays if you feel that the money is going to buy you something back.
Yep.
Otherwise, you need to set your own boundaries.
Yeah, I used to do that.
But you need to be damn sure that you, again, 50-50, have the clout to
do it and get away with it. Yeah.
Do it and get away with it, or do it and do it anyway, knowing that you're not going to get away with it or lose a client. Sometimes your self-respect is more important, and your time and your boundaries are more important than just pleasing everyone.
Yeah. No, you can't please everyone, so you decide what you want to do. Yeah.
Sorry, I missed a lot of questions here.
Sorry, I was just saying that I become KJ Rodriguez on Sundays. I say I have to go to church. Boss, मैं Sunday को काम नहीं करता.
Okay, work-life
So how was your experience of meeting Sylvia Massey? Somebody asked.
Oh, she's a lovely person. Lovely person. It's like meeting her the first time is like meeting her the 100th time, I would imagine.
She's so much full of so much information, man. That woman is something else. Okay, Siddhi is asking, what soundtracks or songs were you early inspiration in terms of mixing? Or some of the engineers you looked up to? That's the second question. I think they could be intertwined or something.
Definitely Bob Clearmountain. To me, that's the mixing engineer's engineer. Consciously or unconsciously, you have to understand, in the days when I started working, I was very lucky that Rajesh had subscriptions to a lot of magazines, even though they'd come 2 months late to India.
That's right.
Yeah? Yeah. But the thirst for knowledge was so much that, studio sound could be read cover to cover, like everything, including classifieds,
ads and everything.
Everything you'd read from the first headline to that till you felt like you'd lived the story, actually. That's how we used to read. That's how I used to read.
Yeah, same here, same here. Cover to
When
cover.
you didn't get the subscription, you couldn't afford to buy a new magazine because a new magazine was 400 or 600 rupees.
Yeah, very expensive that time. Very expensive.
So I had tie-ups with Raddiwalas actually, where the 2-month-old magazine with its cover torn would be given. I could buy it for $80.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I read a lot, and what I'm trying to say is today. I mean, the other night, it's so cool that you can just get on a Wave seminar and see a top mixing engineer talking to you. When I was that age, I would have,
Nobody.
I would have never dreamt that one day you could just put on your camera and type in a question and ask someone, "Hey man, what are you doing?" Or "Hey Sylvia's here, let's go and meet," or anything. I mean, we had to use our ears and understand, and it's only now, you know. You look at it and think, oh man, Tony Maserati is doing exactly the same things we've been doing. And it's astounding today to be able to have so much information. Yeah, but to get back to your question, my two favorite engineers, have to be Bob Clearmountain. And yesterday we were talking in the group, Serban Genia. Who started in the box. I mean, he took in the box mixing to the next level, and I think he's probably the first mixing engineer to get a Grammy for an in the box mix. That basically opened doors for a lot of insecure people who said that you can't ever mix in box. And of course, as a recording engineer, I don't think there's anyone as great as Al Schmidt.
Al Schmidt, another great guy. Absolutely. So any particular music or any particular band or artist that you were very influenced by or something?
Heavily, oh man, so many, but
so many.
I've reached the old fart stage now. I'd rather spend time listening to music I love than trying to discover new music.
New ones.
Again, there's not enough time in the day to do that. I was a bit of a nerd, so I used to really listen to a lot of classical music, Western classical music, actually.
Any particular composer?
My life changed completely when somebody gave me a CD. I was, I think, amongst the first people in this country to get a CD player. My dad was never happier because I had a really expensive LP habit. My life changed when somebody gave me a double album of Dire Straits' Alchemy.
Alchemy, what an album, yes.
So then I mean, everything changed from that album. And I've been a lifelong Dire Straits fan. I was very lucky. In '95, I got to work with Mark Knopfler on his album in London.
Oh, wow.
3 days.
So, how was that experience?
Oh, good. Fantastic. Absolutely. Complete fluke. We were looking around. I was being chaperoned all over the top studios in London to show Andy's work. And Mark was tracking Golden Heart at Air Studios.
Oh,
and I'll never forget that. I mean, I met George Martin, and Metallica was jamming in the other control room out there, and I met them. And then I opened this door, and there were about 40 guitars and one large Soldano amp out there. And I said, "Who's that?" He said, "Oh, that's Mark Knopfler. Come, I'll introduce you to him." And just, I mean, they're just such lovely guys. I mean, no star, no hang-ups, no vibe. "Oh, you're from India, you must sit in with us." And best 3 days of my life.
Wow.
Union rules in the UK meant I wasn't allowed to just sit in with them. I had to be paid. So I got paid £60 a day to sit on sessions with Mark Knopfler. I mean, I would have happily paid £100 a day to them.
So that's a damn good fluke, Farhad. I think one of the best ones of your life, actually, so to speak, to sit in on that. So, yeah, one of my favorite guys too. I've been tracking, following him, his work, and how he's been doing things, and some of the videos he's released recently of interviews and stuff that he's been doing. Some amazing work he's done, no doubt about it.
So what are the questions? Ziddi's question, right?
Yeah,
So I
what
want
is
to
that?
also add as an extension to that. I think all of you people, in whatever way, cheap tickets, expensive tickets, it doesn't matter. I mean, everyone wants to go and see classical music only when Zubin Mehta comes, only to find out that all the old, rich, decrepit Parsis have bought out all the tickets to see him. Yeah, but there's a hell of a lot of classical music being played
Yeah,
live. Yeah, at Tata Theatre, at
the theater, yeah.
by SOI and all.
SOI
I
and
would
all, yeah.
seriously encourage all of you to please go. It doesn't matter. The quality of the performance does not have to be stellar. What has to matter is you understand how live music sounds, because that's what we are trying to
Absolutely.
get to when you're mixing on speakers. It's an imperfect technology. Speakers by themselves are imperfect.
Yep.
Playback by itself is imperfect. So you're trying to get to a certain level of when you say you're mixing. But if you don't go out and hear how live music sounds in a correct acoustical space, how are you ever going to learn what is tastefully right in mixing or not?
Yep.
So though I have
Absolutely.
said dire straits and blah blah, very much more probably the Western classical that I grew up listening to probably has played a much greater role in my understanding of music than everything else that follows.
I totally agree. Yes, I totally
Yeah,
agree.
so you guys need to go out and hear live music.
Yeah.
If you buy any piece of Rupert Neve gear today, Rupert Neve Designs gear, yeah, in every manual of his gear, there's a whole thing about going and watching a beautiful paragraph about
Hmm.
listening to live music. You can download one of the manuals for any of his gear from the website and read that paragraph. It's there at the end of every manual.
And at the end of the manual, yes, that's right.
Yeah, about
He writes
listening
that.
to live gear, listening to live music,
Like,
so you understand what the gear is shooting for or what you are trying to do.
absolutely. No substitute for that, guys. Not at all. Listening to live orchestra, and I've had some great moments at the NCPA Tata Theatre listening to so much
Correct.
classical music. Oh, amazing. Really amazing. It opens your ears, your eyes, so many things, things pop in your head. To me, it does happen like that. Saying, whoa, I mean, I don't remember hearing it like this. So this is also, you can do this as
Absolutely.
well. So that happens a lot.
And I think
And
not only that, space, and I think you cannot truly understand dynamic range until you
mm,
hear classical music live. Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, there are points like if playing a violin concerto, there's only one solo violin, and then that rush you get when the whole orchestra joins
Orchestra
in
kicks
to a
in. Oh,
climax. It's just
that's when you understand. Sure, I do agree, and I think this is a very, very good advice for all you youngsters to spend the time, the money, put it together, and watch out for all the concerts which might be happening in your city, and just make it a point to attend, to listen, make notes, assimilate out of that what you just heard, and I think
and
you'll be in a good
importantly,
space.
enjoy.
Enjoy.
It's not homework. Enjoy.
Cool.
As an
So,
audio
okay.
engineer, what would you regard as your best skill?
Best
My
skill.
missing tooth. It removes comb filtering in sounds. No, I'm just kidding. Um,
Especially if you have a metal one.
yeah, no, it's dropped out, and the lockdown has prevented me from replacing it. I'd like to think that my best skill has something to do with engineering, but I think my best skill is being frank.
Hmm.
Not Frank the guy, frank as in honest about much to my detriment, both personally and career wise, but I am frank. I don't believe that, I think life is too short to bullshit people anyway.
Hmm.
So be frank about what you can do, what you can't do, what you're willing to do, or how much you're willing to do it for, or not willing to do any more than this or any less than this. Always be frank and upfront about what you're bringing to the table and what you're taking off the table when you're bringing that.
True, less chance for misunderstanding. Absolutely. The more you are frank and clear about it, the better it is. And like his logo, his DP says, harm no one and take no shit. So
Correct.
I totally buy that. Absolutely. What else is there? Do we have any more interesting questions out here?
Kohinoor Kohinoor is smiling. Why do you have an Avid logo in your background?
Where is that? I don't see an Avid logo. There was a guy called Deep who asked a question, advice for young talents from your experience, which you now know in hindsight, do you think would have helped you if you had known it earlier? What would that be?
Sorry, say that again.
So suppose you are a young guy, but with your experience, all the years that you've accumulated, what are one or two things that you now know from your experience, which if you had known earlier in hindsight, you would have kind of improved or done a lot more? What would that be?
Learning when to shut up.
Learning when to shut up. Okay.
And not be frank. My greatest quality.
Okay. So
yeah,
the quality...
I've been a terror in my young days, and I've rubbed up a lot of people the wrong way. And as we grow up and grow milder and older versions of ourselves, some people don't grow up enough to let go of what happened in the youth.
Okay.
And so, yeah, if I could speak to 22-year-old or 21-year-old me now, I'd say that. Be gentler on people.
Be gentler on people. Okay. That's a good thought. What's your take on mixing sampled orchestral tracks? Somebody's asked you. I think this Siddhi's asked you.
I don't think there's anything wrong in mixing sampled orchestral tracks. I think, okay, I'm going to go out a bit on a limb here. I think a lot of people seem to rely on a fancier library, whatever is, I don't know, like today, whatever, the Spitfire, Vienna Symphonic is very last decade.
VSL libraries, yeah.
Yeah, VSL is now very last decade. I think Spitfire audio is today's. I have Spitfire audio. I think a lot of people use these libraries as a crutch. Yeah, I think it's much more important to understand how strings are arranged. And again, part of it is learning. And I mean, someone like Tanuj Tiku has learned it formally, but a lot of it amounts to listening or watching live performance to understand how strings are arranged. Yeah, you might write wonderful parts, but if you don't know what instrument plays what parts, orchestras, I mean, a lot of people don't understand something, and that is orchestras play in waves, actually. Yeah. So if you have a violin section of 60 people, one section is doing the upstroke, and immediately after 30 of them have done the upstroke, the others 30 are doing the downstroke. If you watch them, it is seamless. And that's something you cannot, I don't know about today, but it's something I would assume would be extremely painstaking to program on even the best sample-based libraries.
True.
Yeah, especially for sounds that are extended, sostenuto sounds. So it's very easy to program strings when they are spiccato or
just straight legato, spiccato is fine, but complex playing styles.
And that is where an understanding of a sample, whether you're using a sampled orchestra, there's nothing. I mean, today the best scoring guys set up a template first using a sampled orchestra, which is then printed out. The separate parts are printed out and then recorded live.
Yeah,
and
we all do that.
Very often when you do it live, even I'm sure a lot of big name mixing engineers won't tell you this, but it is always augmented by even the sampled orchestra.
Yeah, that's
Especially if you can't afford a really crack recording team or a really crack location or a really crack orchestra to play. Yeah, so you might get it done cheap and then add the sampled orchestra to augment the real orchestra. Not necessarily all of it in places. And it's pleasing. There's I'm sorry, I seem to have lost track of your original questions. What do I think of it?
What do you think of using sampled orchestra?
There's nothing wrong about using sample stuff at all.
You need to know how to use it. I mean, I think that's more important. And somehow my experience has been that
Good gear,
drummers,
good plugins, good sample libraries will never be a crutch for good work.
good work.
That is for
Yeah.
sure. Somebody who knows exactly what the hell they are doing will be able to program better than you using whatever stock sound are there in GarageBand than you can with whatever fancy stuff you have.
I thought
Don't know
drummers
what
make
you're...
better programmers. Like drummers make better drum programmers than non-drummers, purely because of this.
True.
Because they know
True.
exactly. You don't give them a
True.
basic matrix drum programmer, they'll still be able to get you a fantastic group. That's the reason. So knowing the craft, knowing the instrument, knowing your orchestra arrangement, like you said, is important, far more important, the music part of it. So yeah, sure. So I hope you get that. What are we
Some
saying? Okay.
notable tricks or advices of Bob Clearmountain you brought in your work. I have no notable tricks at all. I don't have any. Actually, it would be very disappointing because I don't consider I have any tricks. I don't think that there are any tricks in engineering that is going to save you. There's only common sense, good sense, and organization. Organization is, I think, a very important part. And for us, it comes from tracking in our analog days. So for me, if I'm organizing a track, if you get me tracks, the tracks will be dragged into Pro Tools in alphabetical order, not the order that you want it in. But I will take, firstly, even before I listen to it, I will take time to organize and start groups of tracks and color them. I will always keep the drums first. Little story for you. In the old days on analog tape, we used to have high frequency losses on the edge track, the
Edge track.
outermost track of the tape, which is why you always recorded the kick on track 1. Yeah, because there would be no loss. If you recorded a violin on track 1, you'd lose half the frequencies. But since the kick is round and tubby, you don't lose that much. So the edge tracks were always reserved on one side for SMPTE timecode and the other side for the kick.
Yeah.
And in my experience, I mean, a song generally, the rhythm section and the bass and their interaction is the foundation of everything else on the song.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I start. That's how I start mixing. I mean, my groups are, my groups are organized in such a way that drums and bass comes first, then whatever is the primary bed instruments, whether it's piano or pads or whatever, followed by whatever guitars, brass, strings. Again, they'll be grouped in whatever. Even if there's only viola and cello, it will be a separate group. And I save it as a separate group and I color it as a separate group. So then I find my way around the session a lot quicker.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not very much a Pro Tools ninja. I don't have all the key commands down and hide and show and subfolder and special window and stuff like that. But because I'm organized, maybe old school, it helps understanding because you always know that the drums are there first.
Right.
Yeah, so when you're mixing, it becomes, especially when you're mixing a song that is 120 tracks, everything that stops you from your workflow is a killer.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you have an idea, I mean, this has happened to me many times, which is why I always exhort people, use minimal tools. Use tools you know the way. There are times when you're listening to something on a track and you get an idea, and by the time I've scrolled down and found the plugin that I want to use for that idea, I've forgotten what the hell my idea was. Or I don't find the plugin. In fact, I've now actually started using the search bar for the plugin. But the easiest thing is to limit your plugins. You don't have to use everything. I have over 480 plugins on my Pro Tools, but my active folder, I think, doesn't even have 80 of them.
Yeah, that happens, yeah.
So I load everything on and I move it to the unused plugin folder. Because Murphy's Law means the moment you remove it, it's needed. So you can always just quickly drag it back.
true. That's true. Yeah, Shri also said he'd be there. So good. He said, what are your thoughts on
This is
multiple kinds of reverb? So Shri is
what
asking, what
is
are your thoughts
Kohinoor
on?
smoking? Even I want to
Ah,
know.
we all want to know.
And this is the best comment of the day. You resemble and speak like Mujib Dadarkar little bit. Thank you, my friend.
Shijesh is asking you, what are your thoughts on multiple kind of reverb in one song? Does it take away from the song being in one space?
Yes and no. Actually, it's a very good question because somebody had asked one of the things that Clear Mountain
Mm-hmm.
does, one reverb for the whole
Okay.
song very often, not just one reverb on the drum kit. So a lot of my work is like that. I will use one reverb for the whole song. But I think the way music is evolving today,
Yeah.
a lot of people expect to hear different spaces mixed in. Ultimately, I think you have to do what serves the song or what serves the music. I don't think there are any rules. Like you may use a reverb across an entire drum kit and the drum room mics, but you want a long reverb on the snare or side stick, very 80s.
Mm.
So then you put that reverb. I mean, you're listening to a recorded space anyway, it's not a real thing. In real life, you would not hear it that way
Yeah.
unless the mixing engineer at a live concert put a reverb on just the snare for that song.
I think you rightly said the changing music style has kind of brought that in. Earlier, we were recording most bands live. There was hardly any dubbing. So you kind of envisaged a live performance. So you kept them all in
Correct.
one space. But now, I think music making has changed and the way we perceive music has
True.
changed. So there is a whole ball game of using three, four, whatever takes your fancy. I mean, whatever works for the song and that genre
Correct.
of music,
Correct.
that's what you end up using, I guess. So that's would be the answer on that,
So
right?
we've gone the whole way around.
Mhm.
Lots of reverb and delay were in fashion in the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially at British pop. And then it became drier and drier and drier. And actually, that's a question I get. I think till I mixed Kamine, I don't think no one had ever thought of keeping a vocal so dry.
So dry.
Yeah, so that I get asked that all the time. That why isn't there any reverb on the vocals? And I'm saying there is reverb on the vocals. It's just not miles long.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it went back to stylistically dry, and now I think we are again going back towards longer reverbs,
Coming back. Hmm.
coming back to that.
Full cycle. So your favorite album in terms of guitar sounds?
Wow. Well, there are two actually.
Okay.
Two albums that I consider dictionary of guitar sounds. One is Avaya Musicom by Eric Johnson, and the other is On Every Street by Dire Straits.
Hmm.
I don't think there's any guitar tone that exists in the world that is not there on those two albums.
I've heard the Dire Straits one a lot of times. The Eric Johnson, I think I only heard in passing once, long time back, but I haven't heard it back again. So yeah, it's worth digging that out to go through the guitar tones. Yeah, we'll do that. Good idea. What do you see the impact of immersive technology on music making?
I think one of the side products of immersive technology is it takes a lot of effort and money to set up an immersive mix room. Having just done that a year back, and again here in Sonic Laundry also, I'm already 5.1, and I'm just waiting to put in Atmos maybe.
Okay.
And I think there is no cheap way to do immersive audio. And I don't know how far it's going to spread in India because to do a song in immersive from scratch, yeah, would mean working in a proper big, well appointed room for a mix, which is something that's rarely done nowadays. I think everyone works out of their own tiny little mix rooms, and nobody has the budget to pay
Yeah.
hourly for a big mixed room, a properly appointed, acoustically correct mixed room. So that's always going to be a huge challenge. Given the right opportunity, and the right amount of mindset, I think it's wonderful, because right now Dolby are pushing for Atmos music, saying mix your songs in Atmos
Yeah, Dolby Music
for
as well.
for release, and you will not have to mix them again in cinema in Atmos or remix them in Atmos, because you can use the same Atmos mix and bring it into your final mix session. Now, that is only going to be viable if you're actually using the same kind of near field mixing room for music as you're using for the final mix of the movie. Yeah, and that's an expensive process. I mean, it's an expensive process simply because the kind of gear and setup you need to do it is a lot of money, and nobody's going to give it away for free.
Well,
so
just
that
the real estate. I mean, the
includes,
cost of real estate to set up that space itself. No, definitely.
well, the gear is not cheap either.
Okay.
If you think two good quality speakers cost a lot for your studio, think about 12 identical good quality speakers and subs for them.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a money thing actually to actually look at it in that sense. How, well, okay, that there's another question coming from that, what you just said from my side, is that do you think it is just money which makes things stand apart in terms of something which becomes a classic and something which gets left just a little under sometimes? Is it money is a very strong
define what you mean by money.
Money mean like the time
in the sense
or the money spent on the project, like it's a project, like the money spent on the project gives it that extra finish and gives it that thing which just makes it become a classic and like a really good album. And here you don't have enough budget, and does that make a difference in your opinion?
Yes and no. The two are not mutually exclusive. I think with the right kind of right-minded people, you can get a cracking good album at a low budget. In the sense, what I'm trying to say is quality and cost are not necessarily synonymous, especially in this country. Yeah. So, I mean, you can record 800 violins at Abbey Road, and I have done this for my track, and I have done that for the track, and I gave it to the most expensive mix engineer to mix, and we spent the most on promotions, does not mean it's going to be a great track. People will talk about it with hype. I find that in our country we celebrate, I keep saying this to people, we celebrate mediocrity.
Mediocrity.
Yeah. Chalta hai is our national motto. So, and nobody appreciates quality. I think more than nobody appreciates quality anymore, I think people have forgotten what quality is, because music has become a disposable byproduct. You expect to get unlimited music for very little money. I mean, today on Apple Music for whatever, $120 a month or $190 a month or whatever, you have access to unlimited music. Yeah. And what happens is, because your access is unlimited, I think it cheapens the value of the music to you. There was a value when you said, I want to buy the new Dire Straits album. You went out, went to the shop, made an effort, told the guy, went to the thing, you feel that you found the CD copy. You paid $500 or $600 for the CD. I mean, for the longest time, you couldn't even get CDs here. I used to, when I was younger, I used to count everything in the cost of CD. Oh, that's $8,000. Wow, that's like 16 CDs. Everything was counted in terms of how much more music I could get for this much money. I'd take apart the CDs from the covers and wrap them in carbon paper and stack them in lots in my baggage, so that to the customs of the X-ray it looks like only 6 CDs, when actually there's like 60 or 70 CDs in my bag being smuggled into the country. And things we've done for music, and I find it very strange, because the music had value. You paid money for it, and you listen to albums, which people don't listen to anymore. People only listen to singles and playlists with jumble things, and it's on. It becomes like white noise. It's just there everywhere. It's in your elevator. It's in your car. It's where you go. It's in the lobby of your building. It's there, unlimited and free on a tap. Which kind of cheapens it.
Okay.
So I think it's very important, and I don't find enough people doing this today. It's very important to have some semblance of a high quality stereo music system in your house if music is either your passion or your living, whether you're a composer or a guitar player or a session player or an engineer or whatever, to understand. I mean, about a year back, I actually read an article by a hi-fi pundit saying why CD might actually be better sounding than LPs. And I was like, how old are you? Damn right, you know. All these young millennials talk about vinyl like it's such a great thing. I mean, I couldn't wait to get rid of LPs the moment CD came out. A magical silver disc with no noise, no crackles, no pops. You put in a cassette and record it, and you don't have to start the recording 9 times because. I mean, I remember the first time hearing Stairway to Heaven on CD, it sounded unnatural because I had cussed out my record so badly that
hearing the noise and everything.
The noises and the pops and the ticks in the same places were part of the music to me. It was unnerving to hear Stairway to Heaven pristine.
That's true, though.
Yeah, but I mean, today as a listening experience, unless you have a really high-end system and an SACD player and were lucky enough to get some of the 5.1 SACD mixes, there's nothing better sounding than CD. And I think largely everyone has forgotten that.
So, no, I agree. I totally agree. Coming down from the 8-track cartridge to LPs to then to your CD, the huge shift which happened in the fidelity that we talk about. And that suddenly took a dive the moment MP3 and the hard drives were introduced.
Completely.
And I find it very strange sometimes that while the whole world is pushing for video, we've got 2K, 4K, 8K, while the audio is just dipping slowly down while the video is going up. I kind of see that happening, and I'm at loss sometimes. And I ask people, like, what is going on? Why is nobody giving audio any weightage at all? It's as important. Whether it's a film, whether it's just listening to music, it's as important. So, what is your take on that?
I didn't think of it that way, but yeah, you're right. With 8K video, we should be doing 1 gigahertz audio by now.
Why not? I mean, all the broadcasters do priority to video because they don't want the video to glitch. So they don't care about audio. So audio is given second preference, stepmotherly treatment. But why? Because it's as important. I mean, take audio out and make it bad quality. You will not be able to enjoy the movie. I mean, take music out and there is no Jaws, for example,
Correct.
So they are important ingredients, elements. And this lockdown has further proven, I think, more than anything else, how important music is for people who've been confined, have no contact with anybody else. But music has been such a huge partner, savior, your friend throughout. Everybody's just, latching on to music and holding on. So it's gone back to proven itself, saying it's an important fact of our life. But I think in terms of its quality and its worth is where we are not looking at it in that way.
But that's the problem, no, with piracy, streaming, recordable CDs. I mean, today, who takes a backup of the session from you after you've done the job?
Nobody.
Exactly. Why is that? Because first backups would be done, burnt on DVD, labeled and kept. But now that I was just telling someone again, maybe a year back or something, that you do realize that maybe the DVD is only $20, a blank DVD, but that DVD contains the sum of 6 days in the studio at full rate, my cost, the musician's cost, the food you ate on that day.
Yeah.
So that DVD, what is on that DVD is technically worth 10 lakhs.
Absolutely.
No, it's not a 20 rupee DVD. It's a 10 lakh 20 rupee DVD. So you can't just throw it away. And the same people who treat their data with such impunity we'll have no shame calling you after 8 years and expecting you to have kept a copy of that on your server safely for them.
Yeah, because I have a program on OTT or something now and I need those files. I don't have it or I've lost a file. And so, yeah, I've had that so many times. And we've started from a very long time when I started working on digital. We started keeping backups, CDs, DVDs, magneto-optical drives, the works,
Right.
and now, of course, hard drives, because hard drives are cheaper. I remember asking the guy who works at John Lindest once, because he was doing this entire session with AR, recording everything in 5.1. So I said, boss, how are you maintaining your backups? I mean, each track, even a flute is 5.1. He had a Decca tree and he was recording everything like that. So he said, you have to come to my house. You have to see my garage. I have every project backed up on 2 hard drives so that the redundancy of one drive failing versus the other. And they're all in a temperature controlled room in my garage, and that's where I keep them. So I started following that process so that all my previous work is on
How much of your life savings is in hard drives?
It's just 2 hard drives. And if I go through them and I realize one has gone down, then I immediately buy another one and clone that and make another hard drive copy so that the chances of both of them going down at the same time is less. That's
I call it God's will. I say God's will.
God's will.
Someone says, I burnt it on DVD. Have you got? I said, yeah, I've got a copy on my system. How long will you keep it? I said, till my drive, which is 8 TB, tells me that I need to start deleting projects from 2012.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I said, and then there's also a time machine backup. So he said, what if I lose the DVD and your drive crashes and your time machine doesn't load? And I said, God's will.
That's God's will.
We tried our best.
You are not going as a client. You are not going to give a copy. So, but you are expecting me to, and then expecting me to keep it forever. So yeah, that's definitely there. I've been through that as well.
I've got a question here. I saw many engineers who add reverb during the mastering stage.
Yeah, I saw that question too. Yeah. So,
yes, they do, but they are actually very, very small reverbs. 0.2 second, 0.15 second, etc. Just to make the recording more lively. I've never really tried it, but I've read about it.
I've tried it a few times on some live recorded mixes and I put it on the thing. But you're right, they're very small. They are not large. They're all under 5.5 seconds or something. And it just seems to give it a sense of space, just a quick kind of like an early reflection space. So, yeah, I have used that. Well, another quick question, Farhad, on this is that do you do your own mastering when you mix or do you prefer to have it sent to somebody else?
I prefer to have it sent to somebody else.
Okay.
But I started doing my own mastering because certain clients have a kind of phobia. छोड़ो तुम्हारा Abbey Road. What do they know about our tabla dholak? उन लोग को कुछ समझ आता है क्या? नहीं, हम लोग यही करेंगे. यही करेंगे. And then my crafted dynamic mix becomes one big block.
Square block.
Yeah. Rectangle. So I said, if somebody is going to master it here and charge money to fuck it up, then I'm going to do it myself and charge money. So at least I retain control. And I charge more money actually for mastering it myself than Abbey Road does in an effort to get the producer to say,
go there.
I mean, if you come to me to master,
right?
Yeah, I master my own songs anyway. Anything I mix, I master, and I will give you the unmastered version. Yeah, but if I don't master it myself, I don't charge you any less. It's your choice. I'm just saying that if you don't want to go to X, Y, or Z to master it, please use my master. It's not costing you anything. But please, for God's sake, don't take it somewhere and crush it.
Crush the hell out of it. Gaurav Sharma is asking, thoughts on compressing reverbs?
That's an interesting idea, but honestly, I've never tried it. What do you hope to achieve by doing that? Can't you just make it louder?
I guess maybe just trying to, what I can perceive is like you're getting the first attack of the word in without the reverb and then it swells up because that's how the compressor would be reacting, I guess. Kind of doing something like that. That's what it will do.
But you can have a duck delay, or you can just increase the pre-delay and do the same thing.
Yeah, I would. Yeah,
Okay,
I
so
would
very quickly, then I want to say something.
Sure.
I find everyone makes things very complicated. You know, I do this multi-band and then I split it high, low, medium, medium, high, and then I compress it differently and I do this and I do that and I use 7 reverbs which is carefully tuned and compress the reverb and then I sidechain the kick to the vocal and then the bass to the kick and the kick to the thing. You don't need to do, I mean, it's great to know that you know all this. I have personally never used the sidechain in my life. There, I've said it in public. It's great to know you know all this. But again, the same thing. The less you do to your product, yeah. Remember, every process is destructive in some way, whether it is EQ or compression or whatever. It might be pleasing, but it is destructive. So the less you do, the better your mix
The
is.
better. Yeah.
Try it out. Try using space. Try using panning. Try using less processing. Try moving the faders with automation rather than being lazy and just putting a hard compressor and limiter on the voice so it sounds like it's balanced. Yeah, you'll end up with much better mixes.
So, guys, Farhad has spoken in 2 hours with you, and we are down to last 1 minute. So I'm just going to wind it up.
Whoever said DSP is overrated is talking rubbish.
Thank you once again, Farhad, for your time, your opinions, your frankness, and I think everybody gained something out of it. I'm sure they did. So, guys,
I can see Srijesh has taken up the torch about DSP, so that's good.
So Srijesh, you can continue it. He can continue it on his turf. And Farhad, once again, thank you for being a part of this.
See you.
And sharing your opinions.
Hope it's not been too boring. See you guys.
Not at all. And everybody stay safe and good night.